Kia ora, New Zealand. Welcome to Sweet Chain Live. This is episode 34, and welcome. We've got a great show for you tonight. Hopefully, you're all enjoying your post-lockdown freedom. I've got Jack Ryan joining me this evening. Good evening, Jack.
Good evening.
Now, we've got a fantastic show for you tonight. We've got a few things to start off with. We're going to go through the hot scores from up and down the country first up. A few of you have been out and about, which is great to see. Then we're going to be talking to PDGA Hall of Famer and New Zealand legend of disc golf, Bob Gentil, will be joining us. And we've got some questions for Bob, and he's going to be taking us through a lot of the history of New Zealand disc golf. So sit back and enjoy that. He'll also be joining us for Desert Island Disc Golf and the quickfire round. And then we've got a few little debates that Jack and I are going to have. I think we've found a few things that we don't 100% agree on, and hopefully you'll have an opinion there as well. So if you've got any questions for Bob as we go through the conversation tonight, pop them in the comments below, and we'll put them to Bob, and you can have them answered. So before we get into that, we're going to kick off with the hot scores. Take us away, Jack. I think you might need...
Oh, wow. I did it again, didn't I?
We're live. Take it away, Jack.
Yeah. So down in the deep, we got starting in Invercargill, we have Barry Van Beek with a -10. Fantastic. Moving over to Chingford and Dunedin, we've got Quinn on a -3. Then over to Queenstown Gardens, Mikey Yu scored a nice -8 there. Well done. Over to Ely Point and Wanaka, we've got Spookstar at a +1. Fantastic. Over in Lismore, Ollie Webb, ex-Wellingtonian, at a -4. And then over to Christchurch, at Jelly Park, we have Ashton Clark at a -12. At Queen's Park, we have Gregor Brosnahan at a -9. And then over at Brooker Avenue, Gregor Brosnahan again, along with Zach Taylor, scoring at a -6.
Good stuff. Now, and there was also some action up in the capital. So at Berrenport Hills, we had a three-way tie at the top for the hot round this week. Simon Fogarty, Flavio Mayorga, and Team Sweet Chains, Jack Ryan, all won under this week. And Hikoikoi, Flavio Mayorga is doing it again, along with Chris Houston and Nick Panu, who both hit even at on the foreshore. Up at Hardcore Park, there's been a little bit of action. Paula Wilson hits the hot round with a +7 hit earlier on today. And elsewhere in the North Island, obviously we're aware of Auckland, but elsewhere in the North Island, there's not a lot of disc golf being played. So get out there. It's going to be a great week of to be able to get back into disc golf. And actually, we'll see a little bit later on in the episode the upcoming events that we have, and there's quite a few between now and the end of the year. So we'll be summarising all of those left. So make sure you get out on the course to get that practice in, and hopefully that lockdown putting practice that everybody's been eagerly doing has started to pay off. Jack, how did you find it back out on the course? You went out yesterday, was it?
Yesterday and today, yeah, just straight after work, pretty much, while the daylight was still there, and obviously coming into summer, so having a little bit more daylight in the evening is fantastic. It's just for getting a few rounds in and after work, but yeah, it was good. My arm is noticeably sore because I have not done any field work, so that's a strange feeling, you know. And then. But surprisingly, as much as I haven't had very good scores, I suppose, in the putting in the backyard, it's actually translated quite well onto the course. I'm feeling a lot more confident in my stroke. It's a lot more consistent. I'm actually able to change minute things to have a better stroke. It's great. But it's just great to be back in general. Oh my God, I missed walking around the golf course.
That's right. I can't wait to get out myself. Certainly this weekend, I'll be out for a round or two, I'm sure. So on to tonight's special guest. Now, my guest tonight doesn't need any introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. He's the only New Zealander to be inducted into the PDGA Hall of Fame. The kind of father, uncle, godfather of New Zealand disc golf. Introducing Bob Gentil. Good evening, Bob.
The legend, eh?
How are you?
I guess if you were there at the time, then it was you. It was me. A lot of good scores around the country. Good to hear that people are out and about. Obviously, we're still locked down in Auckland, so we can't officially get out and about. But that's probably why you've got no scores from Auckland.
That's right. Yeah. So, look, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's a pleasure to have you on. I'd like to.
What you're doing.
I'd really like to get into knowing a little bit about the history of disc golf in New Zealand. So, because for me personally, I'm relatively new to all this, having been in New Zealand for only 6 years and been playing disc golf for only about 3 of those. So I'm a real newbie here. You're an OG who's been there and seen it all happen. Tell us how did it all start?
Well, it's probably easier if I just tell you my story from the beginning, and that
sounds great. Yeah.
So am one of 4 boys to a solo mum. So having a frisbee in the car was cheap entertainment. And so I was trying to think the other day, actually, because thanks to the likes of James Smithers and company, they've been encouraging me to write a few things down. So I've been spending a few hours at the computer and racking my brain to try and suss out the exact years of when things happened. But I'm trying to think. My actual throwing days go back to just about the days of the pie tin, the frisbee pie tin. But that's the pie tin. But would have been the early 60s. I would have been 10 or 11, somewhere like that. And we always used to have a frisbee in the back of the car. As it was a New Zealand-made frisbee. It was a Lincoln frisbee. Although, interestingly enough, it said frisbee and whammo on it at the same time. I'll explain a little bit more about that later on. It ended up getting that company into quite a bit of trouble. But we used to chuck that wherever we went. And wherever I went, I always had a frisbee with me. When I was living in my teens on Takapuna Beach, which would have been early 70s, very early 70s, the frisbee always used to be entertainment, and we'd make up our own games on the beach. There was the inevitable force-back games and things like that everybody used to play in those days. We had our own game of guts, which we didn't even know existed as an official sport at that stage, but standing 10 meters apart and slamming a disc at each other as hard as we could. That was all part of the fun. But and also, strangely enough, too, I was talking to a couple of mates. In fact, I've got a mate that I still throw with on Takapuna Beach today. And next year will be 50 years that him and I have been chucking on the beach together. When we were teenagers, we started chucking. So it goes back a long way. But I was talking to him and I said, remember we used to have our own version of frisbee golf? He said, yeah. Remember that when they used to have the ski lane poles on the beach and things like that? So we actually had started playing frisbee golf in the early 70s on Takapuna Beach just as a fun game in the afternoon. When the beach cleared out, we'd start chucking frisbee around. I'd shifted around New Zealand a bit with what I was doing. I'd sort of decided I needed a bit of a career, and I'd been working in radio in Auckland and got an offer down in Dunedin and went down there. And that's when I sort of first discovered really the power of the frisbee, or what we now know as the flying disc. It's just like an international language. It just opens doors and introduces you to people, and it really is a fantastic thing. And that even endeared me even more to what was to become a sport. I shifted back to Auckland, and then in the late 70s, had an offer to help deliver a boat from New Zealand up to the west coast of America. And so we did that over about 6 months. And on our way, we spent a bit of time in Hawaii. The owner of the boat actually had a business in Hawaii as well. So we were there at the Alawai Marina in Honolulu. And I always had a frisbee with me and used to go down Waikiki Beach, and there'd always be someone to go, yeah, I'll chuck with you. And we used to have a lot of fun. And I just happened to hear on the radio one day, because it was, I always used to listen to radio on account of the fact that was the industry I was working in. So I was always interested. And I just happened to prick my ears up one day and I went, seriously? There was an ad saying that the International Frisbee Association was going to be at Kailani Park or whatever it was, a park like that at the end of Waikiki Beach that weekend for the Hawaiian Championships. And I went, what?
Wow.
International Frisbee Association organised events. I was super excited, and that weekend wandered along Waikiki Beach to the park and met all sorts of neat people. And it was an overall Frisbee competition, which of course was the distance, the accuracy, the field events, MTA and TRC, and early days of freestyle as well. And I even had to go at a few of the events, but I met all these people and then got to know them. And for the rest of the time that I was there, would go back along, and they had regular pickup games of Ultimate that they were playing on Wednesdays and Sundays. And so every week I'd wander along there, but I was just buzzing on the fact that there was that it was a sport. And that's where it really changed for me, from becoming a game of throw and catch and just something you did with your mates and had a lot of fun, to realizing it was actually a sport. It wasn't professional or anything at that stage, but there was an International Frisbee Association. Admittedly, that was the marketing arm really of Whammo, and everything was Whammo up until then. When I came back to New Zealand soon after that, that's right, just before I went away, there'd be an English guy that shifted to New Zealand, and he started hanging out at the beach too, by the name of Nigel Barnwell. And he was the first guy that I'd met that had the sort of same passion for this piece of plastic as I had. And so we'd spend hours and hours on the beach. But he was also away towards the end of the 70s as well, and arrived back in 79 as well. And he'd discovered organised disc as well. And he'd come back via Pasadena, where he'd played in the Whammo International Frisbee Championships in Pasadena. So once we got back to New Zealand, we were both sort of clued up on what was happening in the world of Frisbee, and the fact that it wasn't just a game anymore. And so we got together and formed, through his lawyer, or my lawyer as well, actually, strangely enough, the New Zealand Frisbee Association, as it was in those days. So we had the NZFA, which was an incorporated society, and that was late 79 or very early 1980, I think. It was sort of we were sort of young and sort of getting the whole thing together, and we had an official meeting, obviously, to put the thing together, and had all the components put together. But really, we just wanted to play. Nigel moved on to form New Zealand Flying Discs, which is what we now know as RPM, which Simon now runs and bought Nigel out of as years gone by. And I was offered a gig with Lincoln. They'd contacted me and said, listen, Bob, we've been hearing a lot about your Frisbee, I was doing a radio show, and obviously, being my passion, I was always talking about the fact that I was off to the park to play Frisbee, or playing Frisbee down the beach, or whatever it may be. So I sort of got known as Bob Frisbee even back then. But they'd contacted me and said, listen, we're keen to redo our molds. Would you like to become involved? And I went, yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Wow.
So I had meetings with them, and we sat down and drew up some new drawings for what they wanted to do. It was interesting, really, because it was very soon after that, and it was a shame, really, because as part of the deal, they'd put me on a percentage deal for disc selling, which was fantastic. The alarm bells should have gone off, really, when they said, we've got the prototype, it's all ready to go. Do you want to come and have a look? I went, yeah, I'd love to. And in the middle it said, Bob Gentil, World Frisbee Champion. I went, no, you can't say that. I don't know where you got that from, but no, I've never made that claim. They said,
what a claim.
Yeah, but it would help sell discs. And I'm going, yeah, but you can't say that.
Yeah. You've got one of those discs still, I hope.
Yeah, I do. It was a few
brilliant.
I've seen them come up from time to time. But I convinced them to change it to something for the line of marketing. I think it ended up going Bob Gentil International Frisbee Star or something like that. I'm going, yeah, okay, we'll go with that. They then started marketing Frisbee as well, and which was great, which they've been doing since the early 60s. But then all of a sudden everything stopped. And it wasn't until I read the story in the paper that I went, there goes that idea. They'd made Frisbees ever since Whammo had patented them and bought the rights to the Frisbee band back in 1958, 59. And for whatever reason, Whammo had taken out a patent but hadn't it in New Zealand. They'd patented it and actually copied the Whammo original Frisbee from those days, the one after the Pluto platter, and had just been making them, selling them ever since. And so inevitably Whammo sued them, and that was the end of that idea. In fact, that was the end of Lincoln Industries as well, to the best of my knowledge, which was kind of sad. But the nice thing was that Nigel was there making discs in New Zealand as well. And also, because he was doing that, he was really keen to get out and promote Frisbee, which was great to have someone that was keen to do that. I was obviously keen to promote it through the radio and keen to become involved with running tournaments and stuff as well. So that's when we started the New Zealand Disc Series, or Flying Disc Series. And we had to then also look at changing the name of the Frisbee Association to the Flying Disc Association. Mm-hmm. So that happened at that time as well. So it was 79, 80 that we had our very first golf championships, but that was part of the overall championships. So we ran those events pretty much every year since then. There's been a New Zealand Disc Golf Championship, but all the initial ones up until probably mid-90s, I guess, would have been overall championships. They would have been, and disc golf was just part of it. And so we'd run it on a object course that Nigel and I had set up in 1979 in Cornwall Park in Auckland, which was a stunning park for disc golf. It's an extinct volcano, an old Māori pa site. And it was awesome, but it was great because there wasn't a lot of people in the park in those days, and we could use the park. But unfortunately, times changed, and we can't use that park. Anymore. It was a fantastic park. I held New Zealand champs there in 2000 on all the terraces around the park. It was one of the greatest events that I can remember. It was such an awesome place. From the side of the hill, you can see sort of both sides of the country and stuff. But so that's where disc golf started, and soon after, no one was that interested in not so much competing in, but organising and running the individual events. So we ended up concentrating on mainly just disc golf in those days, and running a disc golf competition annually, and building our own baskets initially. In probably about 1980, we came back with photographs of baskets and measurements of baskets that we'd played on over in the States, and then got a friend of mine, in fact, my landlord at the time, who was an engineer, to bend up some wire and make the first basket. In fact, funnily enough, I just came across, I don't know if you can see that, but that's the very first basket that was
wow.
that we had.
I mean, and that's not too dissimilar from the ones that you see in people's back gardens now, right? It looks very
similar. In fact, if you've played Queenstown Gardens, you'll know that basket. That was the very first basket. I ended up donating it to Queenstown Gardens.
Oh, fantastic!
When it became the first course in the country, and it was all object except for one basket, and so there was one the one basket that was built here ended up down in Queenstown Gardens, which was just awesome.
That's awesome.
But over the years, there's been quite a few highlights. One of them was in 1989. I was in Santa Cruz playing in the Masters Cup. I used to always love to get to the States to try and play whenever I could, because that was sort of our umbilical cord to what was happening disc-wise. And I got across there. Tom Schott, who ran that event, had become quite a good friend of mine in the early 80s. I was sponsored by, in fact, I'd like to say I was sponsored because I was a great Frisbee player, but I was a sponsor because I was doing a radio show and they got lots of publicity out of it. But Levi's sponsored me for a few years in the early 80s, from 81 to 85.
Wow. And
enabled me to be able to go to Australia each year and play across there, and go to the States each year and play. After the WAMO events, which was a Frisbee-only event, wound up, Tom Schott started running an event in Santa Cruz called World Disc, which became the World Flying Disc Championships, really, and it encompassed everything. There was ultimate as well as all the individual sports and disc golf. Initially, it was all played up at the University of Santa Cruz. And then I think probably about 83 or maybe 4, he'd set up the course at De La Viega, and disc golf shifted up to there. So it was a fantastic place to play. And then he also ran the annual Masters Cup at the Santa Cruz Disc Golf Course. And that was the event I was playing in 1999, when I heard that disc golf had been accepted as a medal sport at World Games for 2001 in Akita in Japan. And I sort of got my ears. I thought, wow, that sounds interesting. So I sort of stayed in touch knowing that. And once the criteria came out, and it was going to be the combination of your top 3 male finishers and Open at the Worlds in 2000, which was held in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And it was a huge Worlds. It was one of the first AM and Pro Worlds. So the top 3 male finishers from each country and your top female finisher. And so I started looking back at results from over the years and look at what countries had people, were doing there. And I really believed that New Zealand had a great chance of qualifying. There was only going to be 6 countries play. 6 countries would qualify. One of the spots was always going to go to Japan because they were hosting the World Games in Akita. And so I sort of started pushing it at the 2000 Worlds, the New Zealand Championships that we had, as I was saying, on One Tree Hill, on Mangakiki. Afterwards, I said to everybody, listen, here's the situation. Like, I firmly believe disc golf has been accepted as a medal sport, along with ultimate, at World Games for Akita in Japan. And I think New Zealand can do it as long as we have the criteria as the top 3 open male finishers and the top female finisher. I said, I've looked back over the years, and most of the countries didn't have a female player there. And I figured that probably every country would be looking back and doing what I was doing, going, shillers, we just need to get a girl along, and we're underway. But they weren't. And so I sort of had said to everybody, because obviously there was no funding, there was no, I said, listen, I'm prepared to help out with fundraising or do whatever we can do. But no one showed that much interest. But people go, oh, yeah, right, Bob. It's good to dream. It's good to dream. I said, no, I'm sure we can do it, And so I convinced a few people. Simon, who just started playing disc golf, Simon Feasy. Mark Dacob, who's just shifted back to New Zealand, but he'd just got his New Zealand citizenship at that stage. He was living in Wellington. In fact, Harcourt Park is the disc golf course he put in there. And Shane Vuletich. So there was three guys and myself, so the 4 of us that decided to go along, but we needed to get a female player, and we sort of hassled people, and we sort of said, oh, and they were going, oh, it's expensive, and it was going to be expensive, but we had to self-fund it. But finally, Ruby from Christchurch said, yep, I'm in. I'll have a crack at that. All right, great, which was awesome. So in August of 2000, we all organised to fly to Ann Arbor and competed in the World Championships there. And I was sort of doing my sums, going, oh, there seems to be a few extra ladies here. I suppose Germany and other places have all taken, got a woman along because they've done the same as me. And then at the end of the competition, I was trying to work it out. And before the prize giving, Dan Ruddock Stork, who was the director of WIFDIF and initially the IFA, but then WIFDIF, came up and said, oh, Bob, listen, before we actually announce it, I just want to let you know and shake your hand. New Zealand's in. In fact, you've come in 4th overall. So, you've won a slot at World Games. He said, we're going to announce it on stage. And I was just over the moon. It was just great.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Oh, it was awesome. And to top it off, Kiwis have got such a great reputation. It's probably because we're just happy-go-lucky people, and we don't throw tantrums and get prissy about stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're just pretty down to earth, and we'd always invite people over for barbecues at our house and stuff like that. So people love the Kiwis. So when they announced that the teams were America, Canada, not Australia, England, and then New Zealand, and the place just erupted, which was awesome. Fantastic. So then it was a matter of just finding the team. That led to, sadly, a little bit of trouble when I came back, because all the people that went, oh yeah, Bob, right? No, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, suddenly they're at your door going, I want to spot.
Well, we need to send our strongest team. Yeah, I want to be involved. Going, oh, you've missed the boat. Luckily, we had a describer in those days that went out, which was a written magazine. And I'd actually, after I'd told everybody, it had to be a 2-part thing, and you had to be part of one to be part of the other. People seemed to understand, but I did give them the option. I said, okay, here's the situation. We've all forked out $7,000 each to qualify New Zealand for World Games. We went, we did it, we believed in it. And so if you'd like to put in your $7,000 and recompense us, no one came forward. So as it was, but strangely enough, at the New Zealand Champs, which was the first year I held them in the Spa Park in 2001, Simon came first. I came second, Mark came third, Shane came fourth, and Ruby won women. So that's that sort of put that to rest anyway. So we did it,
I bet.
our top players. It was a match play format, and we obviously only had one player, and so there was an unofficial club in Auckland called the Freaky Starley Boys, the Fat Tire, and what were they? The Fat Tire and and disc golf guys and girls. It's just a Freaky Starley crew, which I've been a part of forever and ever. And I said to them, "Well, listen, do you guys want to organise a competition? So we all go into it blind. We're playing straight off, and we play a match play format over a weekend in Cornwall Park, which is what we did. And Simon won the men's, obviously, and Ruby didn't have to compete. She was always going to be the women's player. But it was great because Simon, being the sort of guy he was, went, "Listen, Bob, this means a lot to you. Obviously, I've won it and I want to play, but why don't you come along as team manager and coach and whatever?" And we did fundraising, and it was just awesome to be involved in that.
Mm.
And not only that too, because I got to spend time with some of the WIFDF directors as well. And it was after that Dan or Stork and Blair Paulson, who were two members of the WIFDF Disc Golf Committee, asked me to serve on that Disc Golf Committee, which was great. And it was a real honour to do that for a while. But the writing was on the wall, really, because the PDGA was then becoming stronger and stronger and was always going to be the governing body of disc golf, which was probably the right thing to do. For the movement of the sport.
Just before you go further, Bob, I wanted to ask you a question about up till now, we're up to about 2000 in the kind of timeline of New Zealand disc golf, I think.
Yeah.
Prior to about that sort of time, when the internet was still very young, and the email might not have been a thing so much.
No,
how did you get, like in the late 80s, for example? How did you get information on the stuff that was happening in the States, or even that these tournaments were happening? How did you find out about them?
No, well, luckily, as soon as I found out about the International Frisbee Association, soon after that, there was it was a paper magazine initially, like a newspaper type thing called Disc Golf World News. So I used to get that as well. But also to promote the game in New Zealand through my radio shows, I got sponsorship and things like that. So we used to run tournaments with like there was one year, I think it was probably about 82 or 83, somewhere there, when it was always done in conjunction with Nigel and Disc Sports, because it was his sales wagon as well. But we ran events in something like 24 centres around New Zealand with the grand final in Auckland. And it's a shame I haven't got the photographs with me, but rest assured, once I finish writing my piece, there'll be some photographs on Bob. But we used to get 15,000 people in the Auckland Domain to watch the grand finals. It was unbelievable. Just crowds and crowds. You got to remember, in those days, there was only like 3 radio stations in the market. So pretty much everybody heard what you said. And B, there were a lot of events as well. So it was great. But so the word would go out pretty much through radio stations of what was happening around the country. That was our sort of communication, really. But it was great because having Nigel making discs and obviously wanting to sell them around the country and stuff was a great marketing angle for him. Actually, that's another thing too that I need to give him credit for. He became New Zealand's lowest PDGA number. I think he's 1222.
Oh wow!
Not that it's been current for 100 years, but you have your number for life.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think I make 505. So, but I think he joined in when we first heard about it in 79. Probably would have been 70.
Would have been around that time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just trying to think. I've got my notes here. I've got my notes.
We got to about 2000, I think. So after then. It was that the point that you mentioned Queenstown Gardens was the first course that went in, and your basket was donated to start the course. Is that about when that course went in? I think we had this is a question on an episode a few weeks ago. I think it went in 2005. Did it?
That might have.
Or was that the first PDGA sanctioned event?
I think that was the first event. I'm pretty sure it went in a lot earlier than that. I'm pretty sure
okay.
it was probably early 90s. Probably early 90s. Yeah, because I can remember I ran overalls the last 2 times I ran the New Zealand champs as overalls, which included disc golf, of course, was 91 and 92. And it was great because I had a radio show that was rating really well, and I did a deal with the radio station to sponsor it. When you're looking for sponsorship, it's really hard, particularly being a fledgling sport, and you've just got to know all the time that you have to have an answer to what's in it for me when you're looking for sponsors. You know, you need to be super professional about the whole thing, but you have to have an answer to what's in it for me. So I always worked on the principle that, and luckily because I was working in radio, I would go to the station and say, "This is what I'm planning on doing. You know, we're going to have this big event in the Auckland Domain. Over the years, we've had 10, up to 15,000 people come along. Do you want to put your name all over it?" And of course, they go, "Yeah, we'll make that the 1ZM or the whatever it is in those days. Frisbee Day." So once I got that, I'd get a commitment from them, and they'd say, "Yeah, okay, for 2 weeks beforehand, we'll give you 20 grand's worth of advertising." You know, that was what the radio was worth. You know, so then of course that made it way easier for me to go out and then go to agencies and things. And in fact, every time I went out, the first people I went to would take it. And in those years, they were the 7-Up. Pepsi sponsored them, their agency 7-Up, and they put up 10 grand to run the event. So it was a totally free event. Everybody got a disc and a T-shirt and a barbecue and things like that. And those 2 years, actually, I had a friend that owned a little private golf course out at Titirangi, a little 9-hole course, which was just beautiful. It was called Pine Song. It's now a retirement village. But I asked him if we could come out there and play the disc golf out there. And so we'd play the disc golf and then have our barbecue and stuff out there at his club rooms on the Saturday evening, which was great. And then as part of the grand final day on the Sunday, we'd have a disc golf demonstration in front of the crowd, which was always a huge plus. I think, to be honest, most of the people came along for the freestyle, which was really good in those days. And there was people that, in fact, there was a guy from Christchurch, Peter Bowie, who's now living on the Gold Coast, who went on to become the world freestyle champion. He was just quite amazing, super dedicated. He was the first person I'd met, I think, possibly apart from Gary Jarvis, who went on to become the godfather of ultimate in New Zealand, who took it so seriously they practiced. In those days, it was a turn up and do it, you know. But no, actually, freestyle you'd always practice because you'd have a routine done to music. And if ever people want to watch it, just Google Frisbee freestyle or disc freestyle.
It's
incredible. It's still around. It's still around as well. There's still massive competitions for it.
Still got my nails on for when I'm down the beach. I still have two long nails on each finger, just so if I get a floater at the beach, I can delay it and set it up in the wind and do it. But I love it. Sadly, that was the downfall of disc golf at World Games. I didn't realise, but the guys that came along to Akita, who were freestylers, who were mates of mine from the States, who'd say, "Oh, you want to come and do a freestyle demo?" I go, "Yeah, it was great." I didn't realise they were demonstrating to the World Games officials to be at the next World Games 4 years later as freestylers, and disc golf got dropped, which was very sad. But the other highlight for me, and it was something that I knew nothing about, was when I had a call from Speedy, who ran the Disc Golf Hall of Fame for the PDGA, telling me that I was going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and that was towards the end of 2012. I'd been to the 2012 Worlds in California. They were in Monterey Bay, which was one of my favorite places. And whenever it was on the West Coast, I'd always try and go to Worlds over there because it was half the price to get to. But, he gave me a call towards, was it the end of that year? It might have been early 2012, to say that they'd had a proposal from the New Zealand players, which just blew me away, pointing out of the stuff that I'd done over the years or stuff that I've been involved with, and that what happens, and I've been involved with it ever since, is that the members select the net members. People nominate people. You get sent all the bios, or the people or whatever. You go through the bios, and then you vote for the new members each year. I've just gone through the process for this year as well, where you vote for the new members. But I had no idea. I was a good friend, David Greenwell, who's played for ever and ever and ever. I've got a funny feeling he's the same age as me. What's that? 68 this year. But he's never missed a Worlds, and funnily enough, they're giving me a hard time saying, "Oh, you're New Zealand's answer to David Greenwell," because I've never missed a New Zealand champs in 42 years as well. There's been a couple I haven't been able to play because I've been crippled thanks to women rugby injuries or doing knees and things like that. But I've always turned up and I've always chucked the discs just so I couldn't. So I'm sort of stuck doing that now. I can remember, it might have been earlier this year. When we were the champs this year, Paradise year, and I said to my son, because I love doing trips with Toby. I've got 3 boys, and they've all chucked disc at some stage. But Toby's actually a natural, and he just loves it. And he's a good player, but he's been into his university over the last 4 years, and so he's sort of stuck into that. But I said to him, they're down at Paradise again. I love Paradise. It's nice to go to, but I just don't know if I can justify going down there again. He's going, "Can you walk?" He said, "Can you walk?" And I went, "Of course I can walk. Why?" "Well, you can't not go then. You've played 42. You can't stop now." And I'm going, good point.
That's not an easy course to get around either. I mean, we would probably all watch the flex line coverage of the feature card, but it's not doesn't look like an easy course to get around.
It's not too bad. I've played on worse. I've played on worse. It's not too bad, but it's such a beautiful place to be, and I'm so glad I did it as well. But anyway, so inevitably I needed to go to the Charlotte Worlds in North Carolina, and that was the second of the biggest Worlds. In fact, it was the last of the biggest Worlds that involved AMs and pros as well. So that was a real honour in the ballroom of the hotel where everybody was staying, being inducted along with 2 other American guys into the Hall of Fame, which was just a real treat. I was really humbled.
Yeah.
It was just nice to be able to stand there with some of those guys who I'd looked up to for years and years and years, and then be included into that. It was a real treat. But what was more of a treat for me was the fact that it was my mate Gab and the Freaky Starley boys and the New Zealand disc golf players who had actually all put this amazing prop together. I think I'm pretty sure it's up on the discgolf.co.nz website, because I'm going, that's unbelievable, you guys, and they got stuff from people all over the country and to write bits and pieces and stuff. And Speedy had said to me that it was the most impressive prop they'd got, because it wasn't just from someone saying this is what Bob's done, A, B, C, D. It was from numerous players all over the place. So that was a real honour. It was obviously a huge highlight to come away from there.
Yeah. Fantastic. You will have seen that in the recent years, the growth of the sport has just exploded. We talked last week about one metric, which was the number of PDGA members in New Zealand has grown by about 40% in the last, or since the pandemic began, or late last year. So, what are your thoughts on this? You must have seen.
It's a thrill. It's a thrill. I'm over the moon. I struggled for years and years and years, and I spent so much energy trying to deal with councils and stuff. And the moment you'd mentioned the word golf, they just saw too hard,
Yeah.
and I tried to explain to them, listen, it's really simple. It costs you minimum. You can get a whole bunch of people playing at the same time, out there exercising, doing what you're trying to do, get people off their butts. There's a generation growing up thinking that's sport. We need to get people away from screens and out there. And I don't know what it is. And I'd say, listen, they'd say, oh, you know what it would cost to maintain? I'm going, nothing.
Yeah, that's right.
It's already in a park that you spend money on maintaining. There's nothing extra.
Put us in some farmland. A mob of sheep will look after it. I mean, why tell me? That's an example, they just put stock in there. We don't need prepared ground. We don't need it mown and whatever, Nice to have shorter grass, but but a mob of people look after a disc golf course. It's not that hard at all. And finally, it's happening. We're getting getting asked by councils to design courses. We're getting asked by people to, to install courses and stuff. It's finally growing. Yeah, I felt a bit bad because for most of the years that I was involved in running things, there was no one who was really prepared to put up their hands and do some of those things. So I spent all my time just keeping the whole thing legal, being the president, being the treasurer, being the secretary, being everything we needed to have to keep the whole thing legal so we could still apply for funding and still be accepted as part of, an official incorporated society. And that sort of took all my energy away from other things. Obviously, I ran numerous events. I don't know, probably 100 or so over the years. There's still, two that I'm passionate about, and I'm so chuffed to see the one go into the ground in Spa Park. When I first went there in 2000, and my brother was living in Taupo at the time, and he said, "Oh, there's a park up the road, might be quite nice." And I went, "Oh, yeah, okay, I'll have to come and have a look." Boy, stunning park for disc golf.
Yeah.
And the other one in Auckland is Monte Cecilia, where I've held Auckland champ since 2010 or somewhere around there, probably. But once again, it's a precious bit of land, and I can sort of semi-understand that talking to the council. It's evidently got the oldest collection of northern hemisphere trees in the southern hemisphere. But at least the council's now talking to us and giving us options and things like that, as well. But because my energy was going there, there wasn't a lot of energy to spend in other areas as in encouraging people to join the PDGA. And for a long time, there was nothing to offer, really. There was, the PDGA was going, "How come we don't have many members from New Zealand?" I'm going, well, because the only time anybody needs to join is to come and play in the States or somewhere where you have to be a PDGA member to play,
Yeah.
And that wasn't going to happen in New Zealand. And then all of a sudden they started doing the ratings, and that I think created a bit of interest where people would go, "Oh, hold on, I'm over 900," or they could compare themselves with people they could see playing on tours and stuff like that. So that yeah. In Australia, they did if you wanted to join the Australian Flying Disc Association, you had to be a member of the PDGA, which gave them plenty of members, but I don't know if it was a good idea. I think it still needs to be something that people can choose. They can still be a member of New Zealand Disc Golf without doing that. But of late, I mean, to go to tournaments now and not go, "Hi John, hi Bruce, hi so and so," and about who are all these people? It's just such a thrill. It's just such a thrill. It's just I don't know.
One of the few sports, disc golf is one of the few sports in the since the pandemic started, in the last year and a half, that has actually grown in members. Just because it's one of those few sports that's you kind of almost able to play during a pandemic. You're very separate from other people. You're in a big wide open space usually, or outdoors anyway. Where it's very easy to avoid other people. So
I've noticed that as well, being a master distributor for the RPM brand and selling them through discgolf.co.nz. The amount of people that are buying the beginners sets of discs or discs to get out and play. "Oh, can you get them to me by the weekend?" It's been just amazing, really amazing. And when I do drop into the warehouse, they're continually loading containers just to ship out the door all over the world, which is just fantastic. Just such a thrill. But to see the amount of people playing, and it wasn't that long ago, you'd listen to conversations of people that had no idea really of, someone telling someone, "Oh, disc flies," and now everybody's, got a good idea of, a bit too much Anheuser, or, "Oh yeah, no, this discs are flippy," and everybody knows what you're talking about. Once upon a time, people look at you like, "Is this a code for something?" Anheuser, flippy or janked, or all those terms, and it's a real thrill. It's fantastic. And it's a family, really. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have your own family, and then you have your disc golf family. Everybody gets off on the flight of a bit of plastic, and it's as simple as that. It's a bit of plastic that flies through the air, and people just love it. And disc golf is great because you can compete with whoever you're playing with at the time, your mates. You might go out and play for a bottle of wine, or play for dinner, or pay for whatever, or you might just go and play by yourself. It doesn't matter, but it's you against the course. Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't matter what level you're at. It doesn't matter what level you're at. It's just you against the course. And designing courses and stuff like that, I always try and encourage. Everybody wants to build the ultimate championship course, and that's great. That everybody comes along and gets tested on. But I think to grow the course, to grow the sport, the likes of Queenstown Gardens is just amazing. Unbelievable. And it's not just around New Zealand. People around the world had their first game there. The amount of tourists that turned up and played there, and then go back to wherever and go and find out that disc golf's actually, it does happen in Canada, or it's happening in Japan, or it's happening wherever,
Absolutely. One of the biggest things is it's not just about the quality of the course, it's just putting in a course, having the course, and especially if it's in an established park, it's not going to be instantly the best thing you've ever played. It's going to take a few years for that course to develop and the fairways to appear and from people using it. So it's not just about making the best thing from the beginning and putting in $500,000 into the one course to make it the best disc golf course. It's the best. Some of the best disc golf courses are ones that have been around for 30 odd years, that have just been.
Exactly, but also the courses that aren't going to put people off on their first time. There's nothing worse than turning up at a course with 2 discs, losing both of them, and standing there watching maybe Simon or Jacko or someone throw 150 meters down there. They're never coming back. Do you know what I mean? But if they can get out with their mates and go around the Queenstown Gardens, or go around a pitch and putt course. We've got some great ones in Auckland. Like there's Hayden's doing a great job. There's Henderson Park, and there's another one on the short Rosedale Park, which are just short 9-hole courses. But every families go out there, mums and dads and kids. They're not going to lose their discs. It's going to continue growing, and that's how it grows. Once people start doing that, next thing I'm getting an email saying, "Oh, listen, we bought that beginners pack now." But I'm thinking I might need to get something that goes a bit further now, or blah blah blah. And it's awesome. It's great, and that's how it's going to grow by exciting people with those beginner courses, and then people move and find courses that are going to test them. But it's a thrill to me to watch the way it's growing, particularly here in New Zealand. But globally, it's growing as well. I mean, there's people making plenty, a good living in the States, Europe, Japan now on the professional tours.
Totally. Bob, look, we've heard a lot about the history of New Zealand disc golf today. It's been absolutely fantastic to hear what all of your knowledge. I'd like to move on to Desert Island disc golf. Now, you might be actually aware of where this came from. The BBC Radio 4 show Desert Island Discs. You might be aware of that show.
I am aware of that show actually.
So this is a similar premise. For anyone who hasn't watched the show before, the premise is that Bob is stranded on a desert island. Fortunately, there's a disc golf course on this desert island.
How sad is that?
Yeah, well, that's a relief. But you only have 3 discs with you, and you have 3 card mates who are stranded with you. So we want to know what are you throwing and who's with you?
All right, if you watch coverage of the New Zealand champs this year, you'd know that I only throw a turn. Every drive is a turn, because I know exactly how it flies, and I just throw a turn. It was so funny. They were filming us, and just for the record, the guy go, "Oh, what have you got in your hand for the first 3 or 4 holes?" I'm going, "A turn." What do you got in your hand? What do you got in your hand? A turn. So they didn't ask me more. They just knew that I was throwing a turn for every drive. I don't know. Everybody has so many discs in their bag. I reckon half of them get confused. But I've always gone with the principle: if you find something that works for you, yes, I do carry a couple of more overstable discs that if I have to throw something into the wind or whatever. But in general, my turn is what I was going to use off the tee every time, Jack.
It's a solid choice.
My second disc is a Coyote. This is a first run in of a Coyote. I don't think they make them anymore. I've seen them for sale from time to time, but I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure this is one of the molds that they gave to Discmania or Discmania took over. Because
Okay, well, I'm sure one of the Team Innova guys will drop a comment in to let us know whether they still make it or not.
exactly, yeah. But I'm
What
pretty
does it
sure.
do?
But I think it's one of the Discmania brands now. So the disc is still made, but it's not a Innova Coyote anymore. But the Star Coyote, it's more of a round edge, not quite so beveled. It's your average mid-range disc, but it's just something that as soon as I picked it up and started throwing it, it felt super comfortable, and it's just a reliable shot that I can normally, because I'm not a very good putter. I don't know why. Never been a very good putter. I have to rely on putting my second shot under the basket every time, and that seems to work for me most of the time. As you can see, all my discs have my Southern Cross on it.
Very nice. Yeah.
Amazing.
Now, the other disc is an interesting one. I know there's some people going, oh, how come you've got no RPM discs? I do in my bag, and I do throw them from time to time. But I'm at that stage of life where I'm an old guy and I like my old discs. And this disc goes back to the 90s when I was getting a bunch of discs from Innova years ago. This is an old Aviar, a DX Aviar. And as you can probably see from the rim here, it's got my fingernail marks in it from 20 plus years of putting with the same disc. Actually, I wonder if this is the disc that makes me not a bad putter, or makes me a bad. Maybe I should change my putter. I've had this for years and years and years. What happened one year was when I used to run the New Zealand Champs, I'd always try and do a disc, and I always wanted to do golf discs, and at that stage Nigel wasn't making golf discs, so I would do a deal with Innova. And one year they stuffed up my order quite badly, and to make up for it, they sent me a box of X-outs, whatever, and there was a bunch of these in amongst them. I sort of gave most of them away to people, but I sort of thought, oh, I kind of like that disc, and it sort of just stuck in my hand, and so I've always used it. But funnily enough, that year that I was at Masters Cup in 99, when I've already been using this for 5 years or so, I was waiting on my first tee, which was 18, actually, the what they call the top of the world at De La Viega, for my playing partners to turn up. And in those days, I used to write for the Discovering the World, or not Discovering the World, the Disc Golf World News, and they'd ask me quite often to write stories about what was happening with disc golf down under and stuff like that. And at the end of each year, they'd ask me to do a wrap on the year. And so I'd go through my photographs and send them half a dozen photographs. They'd select a few. And this disc just happened to be one of the photographs. We were playing an event in National Park. And it was one of those stunning days, and the mountain was in the background with the snow on it and stuff. And it got lodged in the chain. So it was just sitting in the chains in the basket, and I was standing there looking at it, and I thought, I'll get a photograph of that. So I took a photograph of the disc and through the chains with the beautiful mountain in the background. It just looked awesome. And they loved the photograph, and they used it as one of half a dozen that they used with the story that I'd wrote. But anyway, my playing partners turned up, and these couple of good old boys from Oklahoma or somewhere turned up. And I introduced myself, and they went, Bob, you Bob from New Zealand? I went, yeah. And they said, listen, dude, I got to tell you something. And he got his out of his bag, and he went, see this disc? I went, well, yeah. And he said, I was reading the Disc Golf World News, and the next thing is a photograph of my disc in the. He said these were only ever done for our club and our event. How come that was there? And obviously, I never sent it to me in New Zealand, thinking that they'd never know that they sent the X-outs. And I went, he said, do you know whose that is? I'd like to know. And I reached into my bag and I pulled it out and I went, this one. And he went, that's the one. That's it. Unbelievable. So we had a great laugh, and we became great mates, and they made me an official member of their the kind club, which was kind of funny. So that's sort of got a special place in my heart. It was a toss up between that and my Condor, which David Greenwell gave me, which I love, and it's in my bag. But anyway, I'm only allowed 3, so that's my 3.
Good stuff.
And who would I want to play with?
You've got plenty of people to choose from over the years. So
yeah,
who's with you?
At the top of the list would have to be Stork, Dan Ruddock, who's the Frisbee legend, really.
Yeah.
And we've become friends over the years. I've never ever we've played casual disc golf together, but I've never had a competition round with him. I'd really like to sit down and have a great round and a talk with him. So he'd be number one. Number two is someone who I have played with a few times, and we've become really good friends. And it wasn't uncommon for us to share hotel and cars and stuff in the States. And that's David Greenwell, who's another disc golf Hall of Famer. In fact, it was him that did the induction speech for me into the Hall of Fame in 2012. So that was really special. And then I was thinking, who would the other person be? And there was one name that kept coming to mind, and I would love to catch up with him again. Back in the 90s, I had a mate, an Auckland mate by the name of Neil Ramsey, and him and I used to play disc golf in Cornwall Park every time we had a break in the day or whatever. He was a mowing contractor, had a mowing repair shop, and he could duck away whenever he got the chance. And then in 2000, he sort of moved out of Auckland and stuff, and I lost contact, and I've got no idea where he is. But it's just, he's one of those people that I'd do anything to get out and have a round with again and catch up with and spend some time with. So those would be my playing mates: Stork, David Greenwell, and my buddy who I haven't seen for a long time, Neil Ramsey. Hopefully he's still around, and maybe he might get the message here and contact me, and we can get out and have a round of disc golf again.
I hope so. Certainly, if he's listening, or you know him, then drop us a note.
Yeah, exactly. I got a funny feeling last I heard he'd shifted to New Plymouth, and I know there's a bit of disc golf happening down there because I sold them a course, but I'd love to run into him again, and that would be really special. But yeah, that'd be an interesting group. That'd be an interesting. I did have Ed Hendrick on my list as well, but I have played with him. In fact, 99 Masters Cup, we played around together as well. So that was incredible. Yeah.
Fantastic. Look,
my clock's gonna strike.
Your clock's going off. Right, so we shall be quick. We are getting on to the quick fire round now. So our get to know you round. We feel like you've been through a lot of the history already, but we got our quick fire round. I'm going to go through the family friendly front nine, and then Jack's going to take us through the safari nine. So, are you ready?
Standing by.
What's your name?
Bob.
Where were you born?
Takapuna, Auckland.
Where do you live now?
Takapuna, Auckland.
What's your PDGA number?
8505.
How many years have you been playing?
Oh, geez, Louise. 50.
What's your favorite disc?
Probably my old AVR.
Your favorite course?
New Zealand Spa Park.
Your favorite MPO player?
Simon Veazey.
Your favorite FPO player?
That's a tough one. Probably Paula.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
and taking us through the Safari 9, Jack?
Yeah, through the back nine, we're going to start with Heiser or Anheuser.
Yeah, you can't play without an Anheuser, but I did for years. But Heiser is my accuracy. Like if I've got an open to the right, then I'll Heiser every time.
Heiser it is. Backhand or forehand?
Oh, I wish I had a forehand. Backhand.
Roller or air shot?
Air shot every time.
Putting or driving?
Driving.
Innova or RPM?
RPM. I know I've just gone through 3 Innova discs, but RPM. I love their plastic.
Brilliant. Skydive or bungee jump?
Hey, skydive every time. I've done 1,500 jumps.
That's insane. Incredible. Oh my gosh. 60s or 70s?
I used to jump with a parachute display team. Have we got time for this? And in the 90s, I had it was a self-indulgent weekend. I would run the New Zealand Flying Disc Championships into the Auckland Domain. And then the moment they were over, I'd have a helicopter come in, and I ran a parachute accuracy competition. We put a target right out in front of the 15,000 people, and I'd had the helicopter lift people, and I'd charge them $100 each, and we'd do a fundraiser for Koru Care. But yeah, no, I jumped with a parachute display team, and I've done 1,500 jumps.
That's incredible.
But anyway, I did a bungee too, because everybody used to go, "Oh, have you ever done a bungee?" I'm going, "Well, no." So I went down to Queenstown in the 90s and did Skipper's Canyon. Just so I was like, I did a bungee jump, but there's nothing like diving out the door of a plane.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. All right, next question would be 60s or 70s?
Ooh, give me the flower power era. I'll take the 60s.
North Island or South Island?
Wow, that's a tough one. I'm more a beach and warmer temperatures guy, so I'd have to take the North Island. Yeah, I'd have to take North Island. But in saying that, I love the South Island. It's so scenic. But anyway, North Island.
The next question's a little bit moot then. Summer or winter?
Yeah, no, I'm a summer person. I'm solar powered.
And last but not least, dawn or dusk?
They're both my favorite times of the day, but I'm an early-ish morning person. I like the early morning. Like, I get up pretty early and head from where I live just to walk down to the beach and walk along the beach in the morning. I'm a morning person here.
Fantastic. Well, fantastic. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been incredibly entertaining, and I'm sure that everybody's enjoyed hearing your tales of New Zealand disc golf. And I'm sure that people will come and say hello if they don't know you already. Certainly, I will next time I see you. So, look, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you again very soon.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Have a good one.
Catch you around.
Jack, wow. I just feel like I've had a history lesson. That was incredible.
Absolutely.
That was incredible. I know a lot more about how this sport in New Zealand got to where it was, or is now even. So, I mean, brilliant. Thanks so much, Bob, for coming on. That's
because
that
of
was
people.
Great.
Because of people like Bob is why the sport exists in New Zealand. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't be here having this chat if Bob wasn't doing his thing all those years ago. So yeah, good stuff. Right, now we've got a couple of things that we wanted to talk about, and they were a bit kind of I don't know how you put this. We were kind of talking prior to the episode about what we were going to cover today, and it was it wasn't really a meme, but we kind of saw it was a kind of a change my mind statement. So Jack, and I hopefully this is quite a divisive subject. Certainly me and Jack have got different opinions on it, so we'll see how we get on. Jack, what's your statement?
Well, we're going to start with buying discs and not throwing them is a waste. Now,
Okay.
I'd love comments on this as well. Please, people, everyone that's watching, please, I'd love some input in the comments here. But honestly, buying a disc and just, I know you've got a very pretty wall back there and they're all very flashy, but buying a disc and not throwing it, why?
Okay, all right. Look, I'll go into a little bit of a thing on this. One of the things that attracts people to disc golf, amongst the plethora of different things that attracts it, not just the fact that it's an outdoor sport that gets people exercising, you can do as a family, that is cheap to get into, and you can go and play in pretty much any weather, and you don't need to be an athlete to do it, and all of these kind of different things, right? One of the other things that separates disc golf, I think, apart from other sports like rugby and cricket and ball golf and other sports that a person might go, oh, I'll go and play that, is there's this element of collector / kind of these are mine kind of thing going on. I don't really know how to describe it, but like if you're someone who, I don't know, used to collect, I don't know, and I never did these because I never really found the thing like disc golf, but if you're someone who like maybe collects Pokemon cards or collects stamps or has any kind of thing, or is any kind of person who hoards something, right? Or is a collector of something, then I think disc golf offers you that outlet. At the same time, linking it to a hobby that you have, that you go and play, and you play with your friends and all that kind of thing. So I think it's a great kind of add-on to the sport. And I think it would be a shame if disc golf discs weren't collected in the same way that you don't collect golf balls, you don't collect footballs, you don't collect rugby balls. Do you know what I mean? Like nobody's got, oh, have you seen my box of rugby balls down here? Nobody's doing that. Whereas you come around to my house, I'll show you a big box of discs that I'm never going to throw. And you know, and a few of them are on the wall, and some of them are in bags, and all the rest. But so that would be my thing. It's I like it as a kind of a thing to go, this is nice, isn't it? And it doesn't the disc itself then doesn't become a disc in so much as the purpose of a disc is for it to fly through the air. It becomes a thing rather than a frisbee. So
Than a tool.
Go on. What's your point of view on this?
Now, not that I don't have a collection of discs, because of course you need backups for the discs that you have. Your favorite discs.
But that's in the same way that you have a backup rugby ball if you've got one that goes flat, right? You
Exactly. It's not a collector. It's not a collector's thing. I just think that spending money on a special edition disc or something that has come out of a manufacturer specifically for to look pretty, you know, and then not showing that off on a course, you know, taking that out of your bag and physically pushing into someone's face and then throwing it and throwing it well, of course. It's just, I think it's just a waste. I think it's I think discs are manufactured and made to fly, you know, rather than sit around and do nothing, you know, the opposite of what they're made to do.
Yeah, I think this is quite a divisive thing, and I think generally, and I'm looking at the comments, right? The comments are, there's nobody going, oh, I can see both of your points. People are either going one or the other, right? And it's either like, nah, I'm going to carry on doing this and I don't care, or it's a case of going, nah, let them fly. I think we've got a comment here from Patricio, who's I kind of get it, and and I'm not a collector of discs to make money on them. I've got the retail arm of Sweet Tune Music. That's not quite the same. But outside of that, I do have a bunch of discs that I will probably not throw, and a bunch of discs that I collect, and a bunch of discs that I've bought to have the disc. Not I've bought to throw, and not that I've bought to flip. Very rarely will I try and or I'm not in the business of flipping discs to try and make a profit on them like that.
Not yet.
I'd much rather have them just to have them, and just because I think they look nice. And I think that there's, go on.
Do you think, is it possible that you collecting these discs has taken them out of other people's hands?
So you're saying
that would willingly throw them.
So you're saying that I'm depriving I don't know, let's dress it up, a young child, I'm depriving a young child who might otherwise go out and play disc golf from playing disc golf because I bought a pink Get Freaky, and that's like the is that what we're saying? Is
that pink Get Freaky could have been in the hands of Brodie Smith, who would have given it away.
Yes,
signed.
Yes, I guess it could, and and discs are in short supply, relatively in short supply, but they're not in short supply in terms of that. I think that might be a bit of a stretch. So you've got no discs other than backups. You've got your bag, obviously, and then you've got some backups. and you
Yep.
might have some old discs that you used to throw but are now too flippy or whatever.
Well, I used to. I recently, and people might have seen this on the sell by swap page, but I went through all my discs and I got rid of pretty much everything that I was ever sentimental about, or I just don't throw anymore, but
Wow.
haven't palmed off yet. The initial, like, I mean, I have the collection of discs. Basically, I had them so that in the rare case, or the case that someone wanted to play, I'd have a few spare discs to be able to just say, hey, you can just have these.
Yeah.
It never kind of got around to that, so I kind of forced the discs to leave by selling them at a very small amount. I don't know if you looked at the Google spreadsheet that I put up, but it was the max cost, I think, was $18 a disc. So and the minimum was the least was $8. So I wasn't trying to make money off them. Obviously, I just wanted to get rid of them because they were just taking up space, which included my first ever high-speed driver, a Millennium Astra.
That was a beautiful disc.
It's a beautiful disc, and it's a trustworthy disc as well. It was a great flyer, but I don't throw it. I haven't thrown it in years, and it's just sitting there doing nothing. I might as well be in someone's hand that's actually going to throw it, and not sit on the wall. So, I have in my collection one disc. I've got one disc that I have thrown, but I don't throw because it was a prize disc. It was the first time I won a disc golf competition, like 4 years ago, maybe. My first Isengard, where I played in amateur division. It's just sitting up here, and it's a custom stamped DDX from the Aussie Open in 2017 that is signed by a whole bunch of pros.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is really cool. It's a sweet stamp. Now extinct, long extinct animal, the thylacine, which is used to be an indigenous Australian animal in the outback. This is the only disc that I hang up and I don't throw, but mainly because I feel like if I throw it, all the names are going to get rubbed off from me.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
But I don't have unmarked discs that I keep and just don't throw because they look pretty, and I think never going to throw that.
Okay. All right. Well, that's an interesting one. Look, let us know your thoughts in the comments below if anybody's got some particularly strong thoughts on this. We'd love to hear them.
Absolutely. And next week, like we mentioned last week, next week we're going to be going through old comments to see if there's any good ones out there. So it may even come up in next week's episode.
Absolutely. And I've got quite a few. Like on the wall, I've got boxes of them, probably too many, but and most of mine aren't particularly valuable in terms of if I was to sell them, especially in New Zealand anyway, where the secondhand market is not as mature as the US. So I don't know. I think I just like them to have them as because they're a thing.
So relating to this, I've just come across another comment about this on where this has come up from, and this person says, "Stop trying to make disc golf into some kind of collector's edition sport. There's nothing really special about discs that are way too hyped up and overpriced on the secondhand market. Some rare expensive disc is not going to help you throw any better." I.e.,
I get that.
the Discmania tilt.
Oh well, yeah, no, and that's an entertaining disc. I saw the number that went on sale in New Zealand. I think that I don't know how many people in New Zealand have got a tilt. Probably somewhere in the region of about 100 people, I would suspect, have got a tilt in New Zealand. And of those 100 people, there's probably about 3 who could actually get some utility out of it, past like having a bit of a laugh. But I have thrown one, and they are a bit of a laugh. But yeah, you're right in respect of that. But then that's a little bit like this kind of the Stego and like that turbo putt disc that they used to make, and like that Aerobie where the rim was like narrower on one half.
Yeah,
a little bit of a. It's almost like a what do you call it? Like a it's like a circus disc almost.
Yeah, I've heard of a disc that and it might still be in production, but it was a disc where it was purposely made in this kind of malleable rubber that you could bend it like kind of up to make it more stable, and then bend it down, or was it the other way around? No, bend it up to make it more stable and bend it down to make it less stable, depending on how you wanted to throw it.
Wow. Wow, one disc, eh? And then that's just it. You know, like
Exactly.
for the whole round. That's ridiculous. Okay. Well, look, if there's any yeah, look, and we've seen them go for that, Brett. I like that, and that's insane, actually. I know Ethan's on the lookout for a 2015 Firebird, so if you have one, then he'll probably buy it from you. Look, anything else? And actually, if you've got more comments on that, then let us know in the in the comments below. We'd love to hear a little bit more about that. We can always come back to it next week. What else have you got for us, Jack?
I have this comment here saying that pay-to-play courses are good and we should have more of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think on this?
I honestly don't know. This is a tough one. I think because there's just so many pros and cons for both of them. This is not something that I'm exactly sure of in terms like it's like the previous point. I think from where disc golf has come from, having free disc golf in established parks is fantastic. It's really good, but there's just something special about paying for a round of disc golf on a well manicured disc golf park, or just whether it's on a disc golf, or whether it's on a ball golf course or a golf course, or if it's just a disc golf course that you have to pay to play on. I personally think that they're a good thing, and I hope we see more of them, and specifically in New Zealand, but because that's where I play. But just along the likes of El Rancho, I guess, where it's a specific facility where you get to go and you play the sport, but it's tailored specifically for it. I think it's a good thing.
Okay. All right. I think it's an interesting question. There's a few courses around New Zealand where it's a pay to play, and I don't have an issue with it being pay to play if that money is used for the improvement of the facility. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean it needs to go back into disc golf. A lot of times we see pay-to-play courses. In fact, probably the majority of the times we see pay-to-play courses is because they're on ball golf courses, and then that cut goes to the golf club that manages the fairways and and everything else. And I really wouldn't have a problem. Inglewood's a great example of that. I wouldn't have an issue paying to play at Inglewood because it's a lovely facility. It's a fantastic course to go to, and it's a lovely place to be. Do you know what I mean? And like you wouldn't in terms of comparing it to other sports, it wouldn't be dissimilar to pay to play in whatever sport that you were playing in, right? If you play football at any kind of level, you're probably going to have to pay to play in the league or the whatever. And that's not the same as a casual round with your mates. I get that. It's not the same as quickly having a quick round after work. But then, are you really having a quick round after work at Inglewood? Probably not, because it's going to take you an hour and a half to get around the course, unless if you're running. And so with the smaller courses, and I'll use Petone as an example, Brooker Ave in Christchurch, and there are others up and down the country as well, where you can do that quick round after work. I never want to see any fees, like I don't want to see like a pay box at the entrance there. Where it's a manicured course, and it's not necessarily a ball golf course, it will happen. I'm sure we'll see a custom disc golf course pop up where it's just disc golf that's played on it, and it will be pay to play. And I wouldn't, no problem with that, because it's going back into maintaining that facility. And so I don't have an issue. And especially when the prices tend to be in the kind of $5 to $10 mark, right? We're not talking huge amounts of cash here. And most people, if they're going to these, in most cases, exhibition courses, or like, what's the phrase that's used? Like location courses where you go specifically for that purpose. You don't walk through it on your way to work kind of thing. You go to it. Then if you're going to go to all that effort, I don't think paying $5 or $10 is probably too bad. The chances are you've you spent double that on the petrol to get to and from the course anyway, right? Or similar. So I don't have a problem with the pay-to-play courses as well in those kind of situations.
Yeah, as long as the money's going into the correct places and making sure that the park is maintained and the park is worth paying for. Like Aaron says here, a pay-to-play only makes sense in private land, because our rates already go towards public parks. So yeah, interesting.
Elliot's asked a question there. Would all money need to go into maintaining the course? I think it needs to go into the people who are managing the facility, right? Because it's their facility that you're on, and and they're responsible for the upkeep of it. Ultimately, if the standard of the course drops to a level that is deemed to be unacceptable, or even drops to a level that dissuades people from playing, then they'll notice that in the income levels. And so it's a give and take kind of invest the money from the gate receipts, and you might get more people coming along, and which in turn increases gate receipts. And so that's the kind of thing.
Elliot did expand on that comment just now, saying facilities upkeep, or are you okay with the course landowners making a profit on their investment?
Do you know what? I don't have a problem with them making a profit on their investment. Many people invest in lots of different reasons to make a profit, and the vast majority of time, when people buy property to live in, they're making a profit on that investment quite often. And you certainly wouldn't. I certainly wouldn't kind of blame anybody for wanting to invest in something in order to make a profit. That is one of the main reasons people often invest in things. And if one of those things is going to be a disc golf park, brilliant, quite frankly, because that's more courses. So no, good stuff.
Radio. I guess just as a sort of a sub comment to that, just to wrap it up, and this person says, I just want to play courses where they mow the grass.
Yeah, look, that would be great. That would be great. Certainly I'm very appreciative in the courses that we play on that when the grass gets mown. Absolutely.
Radio.
Good
and
stuff.
I think I could do one more quick one. Go on then. Most disc golf companies have lame apparel.
Okay, right. So I own a disc golf company and we're wearing its apparel. So let's just kind of sidestep this for one moment. Where do you sit on this?
I agree.
Okay.
Honestly, there's just very few companies out there making disc golf specific apparel that is appealing, that I'd want to buy and wear.
I'm going to say I agree. I'm going to agree, but it's better than Ultimate. So I don't know if there's anybody who's come recently from Ultimate who might be listening, but I think some of the Ultimate apparel that you see in New Zealand is terrible. And I'm not a huge fan of it, to be honest. But yeah, and so, but I mean, I'm not talking globally necessarily there. I'm more talking kind of specifically New Zealand
local
ones that I've seen. But I guess within I don't know. Are you talking about playing shirts and stuff, or are you talking about just okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, shirts that you'd want to play, and not just just cotton.
Yeah,
shirts.
Okay, I think it's kind of getting better, but it's not. Yeah, Eagle McMahon's tour shirts. Yeah, all right. I guess if you like Discmania, then you probably like his shirts. But it's a branding thing, right? It's they go together well, and that's what's making.
I think
you like it.
Yeah, and I think Eagle makes a portion of the money from those shirts that are sold as well. So it's for him. It's a marketing campaign to fund his tour. Who was playing this last weekend?
Joel Freeman.
Joel Freeman in that turquoise,
quite colourful. Yeah, that was quite a get up that he had on.
Yeah, and
I'm not sure I could pull that off. That's
It's so loud. It's way too loud, honestly.
Do you mean to play disc golf in, or to just be in public? What are you?
To play both. I mean, to play disc golf in, and especially
Okay.
in a huge competition that is being live streamed, where you're playing with other professionals. You know, you can wear what you want, sure, but damn, that's gotta be just a little bit distracting if you see
But
that in your peripherals, kind of just.
but again, isn't that part of his branding?
Is it? I actually have no idea.
Well, I mean, he froze Innova, I think, and so
Mhm.
I mean, the some of the Innova guys have got some interesting kit. Certainly, some of Calvin shirts, some of Big Germ's shirts you've seen will have been a little bit like that. Discraft tend to go for a more plainer look, and I guess that's there. But yeah, I think it's an interesting question. That's a great question. Drop some comments if you've got any particular highlights, or indeed if you could link us to what's the worst outfit you've seen a pro wear on live on filmed coverage. In a tournament you've played in, or indeed in a tournament that you've seen coverage of.
I'll see if I can quickly. Oh no, I won't be able to. Anyway,
Get it for us
Zone.
next week.
Yeah.
Get it for us
I was
next
just-
week, and we can
yeah.
do a little gallery of the worst shirts we've seen.
Fantastic.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Look, thank you very much, Jack, for those. That was very entertaining. We've just got two more things to go through very quickly. One is a bit disappointing. I reached out last week. Oh, no, it wasn't last week. It was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. To the NZDG board, asking if one or many of their team would like to come onto the show to talk us through a bit of an update of what they've been getting onto so far this year. They've been in place now for, what was it, May? So 5 months, 4 or 5 months. So a third of the way through the year. That's not insignificant time. I got a reply this week. I'll read you what the reply was. Hi, Matt. Sorry for the delay in replying. Thanks for the offer, but our chairman prefers for us not to appear on the show. However, he suggests that if you have any questions for the board you believe the members are itching to ask, then please feel free to send them through to me, and New Zealand Disc Golf may host an open Zoom call where we could answer them. Any thoughts?
Oh, yeah. I think it's a missed opportunity. Honestly, I think there's no. I mean, maybe they have reasons, but they haven't detailed them as to why they wouldn't want to come on a live show and just answer questions. But I think it's a really a big missed opportunity for some positive branding and marketing through a free platform.
Yeah. Look, I was a bit disappointed. Saying that, I'd be happy to collate questions for the people watching, and then send them off kind of officially so that we can get it kind of it can, people are aware of what questions are being asked, etc. So if you do have any questions for the New Zealand Disc Golf Board, then feel free to drop them through to me. You can email me info@sweetjmusic.co.nz, or message me through the usual channels, and we'll try and get that off. And if they host a Zoom call, then we'll certainly be advertising it on the show and let everybody know when it is, so that they can get in, they can get involved. Finally, is about up and coming events. Now, this is something which we talk about often on the show, but this time, through the power of this, we've got a list of different events which are up and coming, and I've grouped them by the week. So as you can see, we've got quite a few coming up in the next few weeks and months. All starts in a couple of weeks' time in the end of September, where we've got the Armageddon Disc Golf Festival in Nelson, Te Upako and Berrenport 200 all starting on the same weekend. At the end of September, the Fling comes weekend after that. Then it's Moonbase. Then you've got North Island Champs at the end of October, Tauranga Extreme, which I've spelled incorrectly, on the 6th of November, the Bros for Change Charity Classic, which is in Christchurch at Brooker Ave, I think, on the 13th of November, Fault Line on the 20th of November, and Wahitapu on the 26th of November, and then Match Play at Inglewood on the 4th. And I'm just reading now that there's Trilogy Challenge in Christchurch on the 25th of September too. So that's going to be a packed day for disc golf in New Zealand. If you're not playing disc golf on that day, what are you doing? Quite frankly. So make sure that you get to one of those. Any of those events jump out at you, Jack?
Well, the next one that I'm going to would be, or other than the Wellington Club Day, of course, hopefully, would be the Christchurch Fling. I'll be down there for that weekend, which is going to be fantastic. Really looking forward to that. Would be the second of two of three that I was supposed to play. The second competition in the South Island I'm going to get to, which is amazing. Harcourt Heiser, of course, the local. Sorry, not the Faultline Fury, of course, the local. Really looking forward to that. With the addition, playing California Park as well as Harcourt Park is going to be really interesting and something that I personally haven't done before, apart from the Rapture. But sounds like it's going to be a good challenge from what Jack said a few weeks ago. And then, of course, the Tauranga Extreme, I'll be there. I'm really looking forward to that. I've only played at the Falls once, and it was just before I left the country to go to Australia a few years ago. And of the 4 discs I was going to take with me to Australia to play over there, I lost one of them, which was really unfortunate. There's a 25% deficit going into leaving the country.
Excellent. And of course, there's the Charterist Charge, which is next Sunday. So I didn't really do a very good job of putting this list together, did I? So there we go. Sorry, everyone. I'll update for next week. The Charge is next Sunday, and the Trilogy Challenge is on the 25th of September. Otherwise, we've got this list up, and I'll try and do this list each week, and we'll pop it up so that you can screenshot it or write it down, or might help in remembering. Excellent. Look, Jack, thank you so much for joining us today. That's all we've got time for today. And hopefully you've enjoyed the chat with hearing all about the history of New Zealand disc golf with Bob earlier on today, and me and Jack's debates as well. Next week, we're going to be going through some of the comments that you guys have left over the last few months on the streams. And so if you find that there's anything that you've got a particular opinion about, then drop it in a comment, and we'll pick it up next week, and we'll try and pick out some of the more contentious ones, and see if we can have a debate on some of the bits that we might have missed over the last few weeks and months. Otherwise, if you're in Auckland, stay safe, stay inside your bubble. If you're outside of Auckland, get to a disc golf course, play some disc golf. And if you're in Wellington, I might see you this weekend. Jack, thank you very much for this evening. Have a lovely night, and I'll see you maybe tomorrow or certainly next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me again. It was great to be here. Fantastic time.
All right. Excellent. Have a good week, everyone. Stay safe. Cheers.
Good night.